Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a surprise edition of Awaken the World. It is the 15th of September. It's already halfway through September in the year 2021. I couldn't tell you what time it is. It's 5:20 p.m. or so Pacific Standard Time. Why Jesus ain't coming back. Let me just reposition myself here in some way. That the camera's doing dual duty. Dual duty. Darren said duty. Um, because Kelly, there we go. That's a little better because Kelly needs it for her schooling as well. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about that post I put up earlier today. And maybe touch on a tiny bit about lucid dreaming as well. So, first of all, hi, big surprise. Thought I'd drop by, say hi, and let you know how truly loved you are. And that no matter how crazy humanity is and tends to behave, it's all going to be okay. And we are all loved. Now, that being said, I want to talk to you a little bit about lucid dreaming and about why I engage in the practice and how it came about. And we're going to do a whole video on it because we've had a request to, which will include some practices for you. I had the great pleasure and honor of staying at a particular Tibetan monastery that's whole focus was on dream yoga. And this was an amazing experience, and I it it will come to the point for you if you do choose to engage in lucid dreaming and follow through with the video that I'm going to do on it and the techniques that I described to you. Um, there's a number of nights where even though my body is asleep, my being, my consciousness, is sitting in a library reading, taking in information. There's other times where I choose to have other types of experiences in that. And those are available to you too. The one caveat is that it is indeed considered a distraction in life. So be careful with it. As everything in life is, it's all about in how you use it, and we tend to allow it to become, distractive in some way to us. So what I do practice on a regular basis is roughly once every 10 days or so, 2 or 3 times a month. There is a particular pub on a particular plane where I meet Jesus. And without going into the detail to try to explain this to you, you will have that same ability too. Except your Jesus won't be quite the same as my Jesus. And that's all right. And, I don't drink alcohol, but really because he likes to drink beer, I sit in this pub with him and we talk. And we talk about a lot of things. And I find it very refreshing to have a deep conversation with someone who indeed has such a depth to him. And one of the questions I asked, really already knowing the answer, but more to see where he was going to go with it, was, if he was ever going to come back to Earth. And the answer was indeed no way in hell. Then he asked me if I knew why, and the answer to that to me was quite obvious. The hell would be here. Now, I'd asked this as a question, and a few people had cottoned on, to some ideas, and those ideas are part of the answer, and there's no right or wrong answer in this. But here's the point of view that Christ holds on the subject from our conversation. Take it for what you will. So let's say that Christ chose to came back in this particular time right now and decided to come here as a woman this time. What do we really think would happen from the viewpoint of patriarchal religions around the world. You know, the idea that we would accept on any level a second coming of Christ as a female is and I mean, let's face it, when I say we, I'm talking about the general populace would never accept such a thing. It would create such a division. Even if Christ came back as a man right now, you know, even assuming that he chose to come back 18 years ago and he's 18 years old and he's out there right now and he's just about to announce himself to the world, it'll never happen. And the reason is we have all these preconceptions. We have all these entrained ideas of how the way things should be. And the same thing was said in Conversations with God when God is having a conversation with Neil Donald Walsh. God says, there's no way I'm going to appear in any form at all to you human beings. Because the minute I do it, you're not going to believe it's me. Why? Because I'm not going to match your preconceptions. And since all of you have different preconceptions, all it's going to do is create division. And Neil Donald Walsh says, well, you could perform miracles. And then what would that be? Well, that would be the devil. And we would find it no different with the return of Jesus Christ today. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about the Spirit of Christ as a way to describe oneness and connectedness. I'm talking about the physical return of the man, as a man or a woman. An enlightened teacher choosing consciously to come back here to try and lead humanity one more time, it would be the worst thing ever. He knows it. I know it. You know it now too. What if Christ appeared as a black person or Asian or in a pygmy village in the Amazon? Do we really believe we live in a world anymore that would in any way accept any being coming here now, today, in this time, and saying, I'm the one. I'm the one to show you the way again. And even if we were to accept that being as Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and I would put in there, in my case, it would be just as I am the Son of God, and just as you are the daughter of God, the child of God. There would equally be a group that would call him the Antichrist. It would create more separation and division, and the idea of the book of Revelations isn't really so much about any sort of prophecy. It's more a case of, well, duh. And isn't that kind of the problem right now? We live in a world where we have allowed ourselves to become so cynical, so untrusting, so unwilling. Neil Donald Walsh received death threats from what you would normally call a good practicing Christian who goes to church every Sunday, if that's supposed to mean anything. Death threats over that. There's no end that we will go through when we believe in some way that our belief is being trumped or trampled upon by another group. And that's where the wars start. So no, Christ ain't coming back. He knows better. And that's why the consciousness that he represented, the same consciousness that you and I are part of, that same one, offers us always that same state as that enlightened teacher had. The same state as Buddha. And indeed, it's not that you're offered that state, it's that you're always in that state of being. You have the same connectivity that Christ had with all your brothers and sisters and every human being around you and all of the creatures of nature and all of the skies above, on and on ad nauseum. You are and have all of that already. We all do. But we've got this big, wet, heavy blanket covering the light that we all are. And in this world today, there's no way Christ would come back physically. And fortunately, he doesn't need to. When we see deeper into the truths he was trying to get through to us, we're always offered that opportunity to connect back to that divine source that we are always connected to. And what does that really mean? It means throwing that blanket off. What is that blanket? The blanket of our perceptions. The blanket of the ideas that we somehow know in all creation what's really going on. All we can do is talk about it and point at it. There's no escaping the realities that the species and our planet are facing in these coming years. But I'll tell you something, ultimately it really doesn't matter, because as all things, it will be made to serve. It will be made perfect. As I've said before, there's no one getting upset anywhere in heaven regarding what's going on here on the earth. This is always about our choice. The place we're in right now, though, we become so cynical as a species, so overwrought, and we're doing this damage to ourselves through the way we're choosing to live, through this whole concept of capitalism as a necessary part of humanity. It's not. I would say for any of you who come out of Christian backgrounds and would love to see the day that Christ would return here, I would say that it is all our jobs to make it a place worthy of returning to. And right now we haven't really done our job as stewards, have we? We've really taken what was never ours, claimed it to be our own, and then promptly started destroying it en masse. And that's where we come to today. The good news is we don't need Christ to come back. He doesn't want to anyways. We don't need God's intervention. God would not intervene. We would learn nothing from that. And it would violate the one thing that does seem to hold true in creation, and that is you do have free will to a point. But we all have a choice to make right now. We have the choice to choose to be the embodiment of Christ, to stand in his stead, to be the embodiment. In the same way, we can be the embodiment of the One, all of creation, God. You know, I've seen post after post, and really, really disappointed to see this appear in the Course of Miracles post, ridiculing the concept of gurus and how gurus are just out there for the money and everything else. I really don't get that in the light of Joel Osteen and other uh, ministers down in the States who preach this ridiculous prosperity gospel as they fly around in their Learjets and people starve. None of that really seems to compute. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the manifestation is. And you know, as I said, that's one of the reasons why Christ wouldn't come back, because no matter what form he chose, there'd be factions that would have a problem with that, that wouldn't believe it. Well, he's not the European Jesus. Or he's a she, God forbid. That's why Christ, as all of creation, offers us the opportunity to stand in his stead. Pick Christ, pick Buddha, pick your cat. If you honestly think that your cat manifests and shows you everything about creation, and you love your creator that you see symbolized in your cat, then you know what? Go ahead and worship your cat. You're not worshiping a false idol. You're worshiping a symbol of that divine presence, and that's all it is. And since it's all that divine presence, worship what you will. The whole idea of the false idol was the idea of putting anything above our oneness. That was the whole point of that. Don't have any other gods before me. In other words, you and I are one. We're the one. We're all of creation. Don't you fabricate something out of your foolish little human head and stick it above us all, because if you do that, things are going to go to hell in a handbasket pretty quick. Well, guess what? We chose to do that. We put capitalism at the top of the list. We put money. No matter what, we all have to bow down and suck the dust to money. All of us. We enslaved ourselves. It's time to start freeing ourselves from that. We as a world can no longer live like this. We really, really can't. But when it comes to Christ coming back, like I said, he's not. Everything is God looking at itself. Everything is that divine expression of itself. Realize that in every moment of the day. Choose Christ as your symbol, if you will. And then stand in his stead, knowing that he ain't going to come back. Why? Because he's got you. He doesn't need to. He's quite happy sitting there in the pub drinking his damn beer. I mean it. He's got all of us. He's got every single one of us that realizes that we're part of a larger whole. That our little experience of self is just part of a grand experience of self with a one big, huge capital S. So no matter what you choose, we all know you're not worshiping it. You know, it's the same as the Hindu faith. The Hindu really don't have 200,000 gods. They have 200,000 manifestations of one divine creator, Brahma. Out of Brahma comes Brahman. And so Shiva, also out of that same. Not an individuated God, but a physical expression of. And that's what all this physical stuff is that we deal with every day. It's simply expressions of what's going on in here, in that egoic sense of self. And it's always our choice. So live happily, comfortably, knowing that Christ ain't coming back. Armageddon gets short-circuited in the process because he doesn't need to come back. Not only that, it's a terrible flippin' idea. And he knows it, and I know it. And now you know why as well. Each and every one of us, in every interaction, in every moment of our day, can realize that if we were to strip away the cloak of our own ignorance and our own limitations, that same shining being would be standing there that is resident in Christ. It's that same being, that same one. Realize that in your day. That's it, that's all. Hope you've had a little fun with that. We're going to have a great sort of teaching video on lucid dreaming and where it can be advantageous. It is a way that some people can deal with trauma as well. And we're going to talk about things in that video later in the week, perhaps Sunday. Namaste. Have a beautiful night. Much love. Take care.